It stopped working, the internet. Did you notice, Ben?
Yeah, it went off for a minute.
Went off for a minute, and Moshe and Tolly have sorted it out. You're connected now through Tolly's phone. Moshe set it up. So, okay. Nice finger weiter, because we're so busy trying to set the thing up again. Okay. So again, we said a liquid into a food becomes a food, and that's why there's no problem with dosh. But the Gemara, what's Gemara's question? So the Gemara question is like this: a zov who squeezes milk, milks a goat. So what's the halacha? If you say that milk that goes into porridge is a food, it has to get wet in order to become tummy. When did it ever get wet? So the Gemara says, if you say liquid that goes into food is considered a food, but my is kasha. How did it become mukhsha lekabel tumah? Answers it would be common for women to take a tiny bit of breast milk and to put it on the breasts. This would make the baby smell it and taste it, and would make the baby work much harder to suck. So what would happen is to nurse. So the woman would put a bit of milk on the entrance of where the baby would nurse. Similarly, people would put a bit of milk from a goat onto the udder. That was not for the purpose of anybody to suck it. That was just once there was milk there, it somehow helped the ability to milk further. So putting milk on the udder, on a woman where she nurses, that would help the whole process. Therefore, any milk that would come out would actually get wet. So therefore, it was mukhsha lekabel tumah. Again, the world's question is that liquid that goes into food is considered a food. How did mukhsha lekabel tumah? When did it get wet? And well, yes, it did get wet because they would always put liquid there in order to help the process. So therefore, it got wet, and therefore, it's mukhsha lekabel tumah. Mosiv Ravina. Yes, you especially wanted to get wet. It was bevotzim because you wanted it helped the nursing process. Therefore, you want to get Mosiv Ravina. Tmei meis. The person who's a tmei meis, he touched their body. Shesochat zeisim v'anovim, he squeezed olives and grapes. Top of kuf memhem udalif. Kebeitza mechuvenes, and the size of the grape was exactly the size of an egg top. So here there are many halachas, many moving parts. Try to cover a few. The halacha is that an egg is enough to become tummy. Once a person starts squeezing the egg, let's say he's got a grape the size of an egg, the second he starts squeezing it, how big is the egg? How big is the grape? Less than the egg. That's a scientific, simple fact. Now, Rashi points out that we're talking about a tamei meis and not a zov. Why are we not talking about a zov? Because the zov is metame just by the very fact that you're carrying something. So a zov would be metame even without touching, simply because of the fact that he's carrying it. But tamei meis is only metame by touching. Now, what did he touch? Let's say this is a grape. This is a grape the size of an egg. So I'm holding it. So I make the grape tummy because I'm a tamei meis. I squeeze it. The liquid that came out is no longer metame. Why? It's no longer tummy. Because the egg immediately, the grapes, which is the size of an egg, immediately became smaller than the size of an egg as I squeezed. And then, that is not tummy. Why is that not tummy? Because it's a new thing, it's a new entity. This, in fact, asks, do we say that liquid is considered absorbed in the fruit, or is it considered to be part of the fruit? But the point is that as you squeeze the grape, which is the size of an egg, immediately the grape becomes smaller than the size of an egg, and therefore the halacha is for tumah to spread, it has to be the size of an egg. If you've got a crumb which becomes tummy, it can't transfer tumah. For something to transfer tumah, it has to be the size of an egg. Again, I take a grape the size of an egg. I touch it, I'm a tamei meis, the egg becomes tummy. I squeeze it. I'm not a zov, meaning therefore I'm not metame. And it will continue on this recording the whole time. So what are you doing now? Is it on Zoom? It's not. It is. Okay, it's going to be recorded for those who want us to after. Okay. Sorry, the Zoom tonight's not behaving itself. Again, I'm a tamei meis. That's enough. It's good. So I'm a tamei meis. Therefore, I make the grape tummy. The juice that comes out of the grape is not tummy because the grape cannot transfer tumor. Why can it not transfer tumor? Because the second I squeeze it, it becomes less than the size of a grape. And something which is, it says less than the size of an egg. Something less than the size of an egg can't transfer tumor. So therefore, but the grape, the juice itself does not become tummy. But if the egg was more than the size, if the grape is more than the size of an egg, then what's the halacha? Tummy. Then the grape itself transfers tumor onto the juice. How do we become tumor? It's not a liquid. It's not a food. It's a liquid. It's not a liquid. It's a food. Answer. He asked the question. He answered it. When you squeeze it inside a bowl, not when you squeeze it into food. When you squeeze something into food, it's a food. When you squeeze something into a bowl which you're going to drink, it's considered a liquid. This is how we pass them. So therefore, for example, many people enjoy drinking tea on Shabbos. I'm not seeing it so much nowadays, but many people nowadays would like to squeeze a lemon into the tea. Is that good or not good? Oh, why? Why can't you squeeze a lemon into a tea? What? Because like into a bowl. But why is like into a bowl? Because you're squeezing it into a liquid, not into a food. When you squeeze it into a food, it'd be okay. When you squeeze it into a liquid, it's no good. So what can you do? A simple solution for those who like sugar in the tea. Squeeze it onto the sugar. And the sugar is a food. So you can squeeze your lemon onto the sugar and then put your sugar into the tea because sugar is a food. And liquid that goes into food, that's not a problem. That's right. Then you can squeeze your Now those are machmir by oranges. Because as we mentioned yesterday, the oranges, which are, according to some poskim, are considered like grapes and olives, which is deraisa, and the only mattered by, let's say, lemons and other things. Okay. This is machlikas tanoi. And machlik ba'anovim. A person wants to make the challahs glazed. So what does your wife do? Eggs them. The wife, she doesn't have eggs, or she wants to make it even nicer. She takes grapes and she smooths the grapes, she squeezes the grapes over the bread. What would you say the juice coming out of the grape, what would you call it? A food. Because we just said anything which is squeezed into food is a food. Lo yochsha. It's not mochsha l'kavatuma. Abiyodei mochsha, it's mochsha l'kavatuma. To be mochsha l'kavatuma, what does it have to touch? A liquid. So how can it become mochsha l'kavatuma? You take challahs, you want to get them glazed. So you take your grape. No, when you squeeze onto it, the salad will also dribble off. Again, it's food. Since it's food, it's not and the gon is because that's how we pass. It's not mistab. The Gemara says the kula alma against the halacha. Everybody agrees it is a food. Here, what happens to the juice of the grape after you put it onto the glazing of the challah? It dries up, so it's gone. And the question is, a liquid which you're never going to use, is that considered a liquid to be machshel kabotum? Masav mashko, masav la mashko. We're put the Tanya, the Tanya. And there were different reasons why a person would squeeze olives, many different reasons. And the advice that goes through different ones. Now we want to know, our main question is, whenever you squeeze an olive, a bit of olive oil will come out. And we want to know that the oil which comes out of the olive is a machshir, the olive to machshir kabotum. That's the question over here. So it depends why you're squeezing the olive. So a person squeezes the olive in order that it becomes sweeter. Your diamond suavois in his hands are tomei hochsham. There's hochshel kabotum. Why is hochshel kabotum? Because a person wants the olive oil to come out. When you squeeze an olive, it gets sweeter. How part of the process getting sweeter is because a bit of olive oil drips out onto it. So therefore, it is mochshel kabotum because you wanted the olive oil, it got wet. It's mochshel kabotum. Are you okay, Tali? Are you sure you're okay with this? Yeah, it's still working. We wrote about your bandwidth or something. Okay. So the word says it's mochshel kabotum. Let's say you want to add salt to your olives. Now what happens is salt will fall off the olive. If you pour salt and olive will fall off. So what do you want to do? You squeeze it a bit, gets a little bit juicy, and then you can pull off salt. Then it's not mochshel kabotum. Why? Because you don't need the liquid. Even just squeezing it and making it soft and mushy will attract the salt, and you don't need the liquid. So you don't want the liquid, so it's not mochshel kabotum. What happens is you squeeze an olive for a third purpose, not to make it sweet, not to get salt on, for different reasons. The reason you squeeze an olive is you want to know, is it ready to be pressed? Now, what you do is you actually take one olive, squeeze, and then you see if the olive oil comes out in abundance, so then you'll squeeze all your olives. If it comes out very badly, you won't squeeze any of the olives. Now, you want the oil, because it's the only way to tell if the olives are ready to be squeezed or not, is only be able to see how much oil comes out. So you want oil. But what do you do with the oil of that single olive which you squeeze? You drip it onto the floor, because nobody's going to try and store that much oil. So you're squeezing an olive for the oil, but you're never going to use that oil, right? You want to test the olives to see if they're ready to be squeezed or popular. So you squeeze one. You want to see how much oil, so you want oil, but you're never going to keep it. So, you want to know whether they're ready to be, whether they can be ready to be harvested and pressed. Lo hochshav. You do more hochshav. My love, welcome if the mass of a mashke with the ibud, mashke, mass of la mashke. That's the machlekas, liquid is going to get lost. You're right about the second brisa, the one which discusses when you squeeze olives, if a mushal kavatuma, that is the machlekas. But hanoch tanoi with the previous brisa, which they argue about glazing your chalas with grapes. They're not arguing at all about mashkele, but the mashkele with the tzachtzachoi kamifliki. And what happens is, here you're taking the grapes and you're going to squeeze it onto your challah, and all it's going to do is shine the challah. It's not going to add to the taste of the challah. It doesn't actually add to the substance of the challah. And everybody agrees that if it would actually become part of the food, it would be oichel, like we said before. Mashka bola oichel k'oichel dami. The question over here, when it's not actually adding to the food, it's only making the food shiny, is it considered a liquid or a food? That's the question. So it comes out, everybody agrees that mashka bola oichel is oichel. And if you're allowed to squeeze on Shabbos fruit into fruit. Regarding tumah, mukhshal kabel tumah, so then it depends if you want the liquid or not. And there's another machlokas regarding whether you're glazing your chalas, is that considered a real food or not? Now the Gemara discusses more. We're discussing now seichet is squeezing. There are many kinds of squeezing. If you've got a pickle and you squeeze the pickles, or you squeeze a cooked vegetable, the difference is over here, it's not like a normal squeezing where you're squeezing liquid which already exists inside the fruit, but you're squeezing liquid which comes onto the fruit from other places. So it's like it's many shittas actually about this, many different shittas. You're allowed to squeeze grapes into a pot, like we said, but not into a bowl because that's mamish seichet. The dog, let's see where if you've got fish and it's got a lot of brine or juice inside it, you're allowed to squeeze it on Shabbos. Let's say you get a bit of tuna and it's soaked in water, which most tuna is, and you want to squeeze it out, you're allowed to take an empty bowl and squeeze out the tuna. Why? Okay. There, your Chase says a story about a different thing, not about this. No, okay, maybe I just explained. Well, no, the obvious reason is because you're just separating tuna from tuna. It's considered tuna. Tuna juice and tuna is the same thing. It's like it's fish juice is fish. So you're separating a carrot from a carrot. It's not considered that you're not taking A from B. So therefore, it's part of the food. That's what he holds. So maybe I shouldn't say brine. We're talking about fish juice. I don't know, maybe with the tuna you're talking about. I'm talking about, let's say, you take a sardine, let's say, and you squeeze a sardine. What is it? It's fish juice. It's part of the fish. Yosef Avdimi become all Shmait. So Avdimi said over this halacha that you're allowed to squeeze fish. You heard this halacha from Rav, so you're very happy with it. And not Mishmei the Shmuel Mastin, we heard the name of Shmuel, we have problems with it. Did Shmuel permit you to squeeze a fish and take out its brine and take out its juice? Kvoshim or pickles. What about squeezing a pickle? To squeeze it because you want to enjoy the pickle and the liquid on it is disturbing you. You want to have a dry pickle. So you're squeezing the pickle just because you want to get rid of the liquid. That's mutter because you're not interested in the liquid altogether. If you're trying to get the liquid, it's also midrabanan. Why is it also midrabanan? Because if somebody sees you squeezing a pickle to get out the liquid, they'll say, if you're allowed to squeeze a pickle, I'm allowed to squeeze a grape. So therefore they forbade it. And here, I think it was Yehuda said this as well, is why is it different indeed to a grape? Why is it different from a grape? Why? It's ridiculous. We're saying you're allowed to squeeze it. The only thing is, when you squeeze it to dry it out, it's completely permitted. When you're squeezing it out in order to drink the juice of the pickle, there we forbid it in case you might do the same thing to grapes and olives. Why is it different to grape and olive? Because a grape and olive, you're squeezing out juice which actually comes from it. So if you're squeezing something from something else, like you've got, what's dosh, which was the halacha of schita comes from dosh, is you've got grain that grows, and it's got a shaf, and it's got like the kernel, and you're pulling out something from which grows. Here, what you've done is you've taken a cucumber, you've poured it into vinegar, and now you take the vinegar off. So therefore, that's not considered taking something out of something else, and therefore, be'etzem shvi mutter. When in midrabanan they forbade it in a way that if you do it in a similar way as you would do to grapes and olives. The shlokos, cooked vegetables like a carrot, being the goof of benim main mutter, it's always mutter because it doesn't look anything like grapes. If you take a carrot, you squeeze it, and it's been very, very, very well cooked, because normally it's not so easy to squeeze a carrot. You've got a carrot that's been properly squeezed and properly cooked, and you squeeze it, you're allowed to. He forbids by vegetables to squeeze it if your intention is to get the juice, because it's awesome midrabban. So the problem is, why did Shmuel forbid you to squeeze a carrot and permit you to squeeze a fish? That's the Gemara's kasha. If you hold that you're allowed to squeeze a fish, the reason is we said because you're not taking A from B. It's just part of it. It's the fish juice is part of the fish. So why is it that by a carrot, a cooked vegetable, it's forbidden? This is the Gemara's kasha. Omale. So he said to him that the question is not a good one, is because there's two different people said it. One was said by Rav and one was said by Shmuel. And it's a machlekes, Rav and Shmuel. You can't ask the kasha from Rav to Shmuel. They argued with each other. And the kid makes a shvur in so I saw it with my own eyes. That I heard it from Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah, the Rav was one who said it. That means Rav holds you're allowed to squeeze fish, you're allowed to squeeze carrots. Shmuel holds you're not allowed to squeeze fish and you're not allowed to squeeze carrots. And both agree it's only awesome in Rabbanan and it's not awesome in Torah. And now the Gemara brings a third opinion. That's the one side. Gufa, kvoshim shesochta. Pickles that you squeeze them. Omar Rab, legufon, if you want just to eat the pickle and you don't like the liquid, mutter. Lemimei, and if you're trying to get the liquid, potav losa. The shlokah is cooked vegetables, when you go for benim mutter, it's always mutter. Always. If you're trying to get the liquid, it's potav losa. To get the liquid is forbidden midrabanan, but to eat the vegetable is okay. Rabbi Yochanan holds that when you squeeze a fish or a vegetable or a pickle, he holds that the liquid that comes out is like the liquid of a grape, and if it's awesome in our Torah, says the Gemara, Meisvei, Soichatin kvoshim b'Shabbos to Shabbos. You're allowed to squeeze pickles on Shabbos for the sake of Shabbos. You're not allowed to on Friday afternoon, Shabbos afternoon, squeeze your pickles in order to be able to eat them on Shabbos. This has nothing to do with the issa of dosh or soichet. This is simply a lack of kavod on Shabbos to be sitting Shabbos afternoon preparing your food for Motzei Shabbos. What says kasha the Rav, kasha the Shmuel, kasha the Rabbi Yochanan. That means before we had three shittas, very briefly. Rav holds that for the liquid it is forbidden only by pickles and not by vegetables. Shmuel holds by both it's forbidden. And Rabbi Yochanan holds it's awesome in that Torah. And here it says that you're allowed to do it on Shabbos. So you see clearly, not like any of the three. All of them said at least the very minimum was it's awesome in Rabbanon. Here the Brisa says it's mutter. So the Gemara just now gives three versions of the Brisa, one according to Rav, one according to Shmuel, one according to Rabbi Yochanan. Each one reads the Brisa, so to speak, interprets the Brisa and adds words into the Brisa that it should fit in according to his own opinion. Rav metaras letamei, Shmuel metaras letamei, Rabbi Yochanan metaras letamei. They all explain according to their opinion. Rav metaras letamei, and he reads the Brisa as follows: Soichetin kvoshim b'Shabbos, allowed to squeeze pickles on Shabbos. Let's say Shabbos for Shabbos. Avle lemotzei Shabbos, but not for Motzei Shabbos. But one more gufon. That's only when you want to eat the pickle itself and not the liquid. Avle men potar v'losa. The shlokis, if it would be vegetables, when you go from benim and mutter, it's always mutter. So Rav explains the Brisa is exactly like what he says. that pickles is also b'drabanan if you want the liquid, vegetables is mutter, and olives is also b'natur. Shmur b'taretz letamei srichtin kvoshim v'Shabbos tzircha Shabbos wad in the shlokis. You have to pickles and vegetables. But bedrom omrim legufon if you want to eat them avle memei and to get the liquids potel avle also. They say Svanovim lo yischot to sochat chayav chatos it chayav issa deiraisa because he holds that it's deiraisa to ba olives. Abichut taretz letamei srichtin kvoshim letzircha Shabbos avle lo lemotz Shabbos echot kvoshim echot shlokis. And if you're trying to get a liquid, if you do, so it comes out that there's a three-way machlokas regarding squeezing pickles. Let's go very briefly. According to pickles and vegetables, according to Rav, if you're trying to just dry them out, it is mutter. If you're trying to get the liquid, then by pickles it is asa. By vegetables it is mutter. Shmuel holds it's always awesome midrabanan. Abichnan holds it's awesome in hatayla. We pass like Shmuel, which means like this: you're allowed to squeeze. Let's say your child's very fussy and you've got a carrot and you want to dry it. You're allowed to squeeze the carrot to dry it. If you're trying to get the liquid, it is awesome midrabanan, because others, people seeing it, will think to themselves, "Well, if you can do that, I'll squeeze my grapes to get the liquid." Okay. He argues before the only chayim in Ateh only for squeezing olives and grapes. He holds that you're not chayav except for squeezing olives and grapes and nothing else. And now, once he mentioned this halacha in the name of Rav, he mentions other halachas in the name of Rav. When aid mipi kosher, an aid who gives aidus from another aid is not kosher. Topic of memei on grace. And the aidus isha b'lvat. The halacha is like this: min hateva. When a man dies, you need to have two aidim to come along and tell his wife, your husband died, in order that she should be able to remarry. Chazal came along and made a huge kula. There were Eika Deraisa Dikadim. On the rare cases, there were Eika Deraisa Dikadim. And they said that one aid is enough. One aid is enough. And not only is one aid enough, but one aid mipi aid. So if a person says, if a woman says, Shimon told me that Levi died, then the testimony of Reuven was an Eid Echad, and he heard it only in the name of someone else, Levi's wife is allowed to remarry. That is a very big chiddush. Why did they do that? Because they wanted women to be able to remarry. Or otherwise, women would be stuck as an aguna. So this is the only case. The halacha is, a firstborn animal, you have to give it to a kohen, you have to eat it in the Beis HaMikdash. Nowadays, no Beis HaMikdash, what does the kohen have to do with it? Wait for a mum. Once it's got a mum, he's proud of it, and then he eats it. Actually, he doesn't even need to put it, so he doesn't need to put it. Once it's got a mum, you just eat it. The halacha is that Chazal was scared that Kohen would come along and make mumim in the bechor. So they forbade all bechorim to have a mum, unless you have an eidus that the mum came by itself. So the question is, can an eid mipi eid be nema? Rav Ami Ossi forbade it, Rav Asi Shavi permitted it, an eid mipi eid. What? Because it's only a drabanan de ke'edus, but we don't need an edus for that too. Yeah? He says the only name on only by edus isha, which means edus from a woman that her husband died. It says clearly, not like you. Any edus which a woman is believed, so is an eid mipi eid. And a woman is believed to say that this mum came by itself by a bechor. So there's two ways to read this statement. An eid mipi eid is only believed for the edus of an isha, meaning for edus for where a woman is involved, meaning that she should be able to remarry. Alternatively, for the edus of an isha means for any edus which a woman would be good enough, so eid mipi eid is also good enough, and then that would include edus that bechor had a mum, because if a bechor has a mum, that is something which we believe a woman as well. That is true even by an isha as well. And there, it's not because of edus. That's because it's an amonus. It's not a din in edus. Right? Yes, if you go to somebody's house, I can eat in their kitchen. Tell us because we believe in his son. Okay. He allowed it. Merema was very annoyed with him, and he said, Yema shoy bucha, Yema is allowing bechurim to be eaten without a din. The halacha eid mipi eid kosher bechor is believed, and we pass like a Yema, even though Merema did not agree with him. Chalis dvash. Very briefly, what's the halacha chalis dvash? So to take the honey out is forbidden. But if you already crushed it on Friday, and on Shabbos it's oozing out, so then it's machlekes in our Mishnah if you're allowed to take the honey. One man says, yes, it's already crushed. What's the problem? It's oozing by itself. And man holds if you allow people to enjoy the honey which comes out from crushed honeycombs, people go and crush the honeycombs lechatchila. It says, well, also vice need to be a day, or vice with Shabbos. Olives and grapes that you crush them on Friday. When they came on their own, that means on Shabbos, you crush them on Friday, and on Shabbos they're oozing out liquid. Asun. But again, the machlekes is always identical machlekes. Grapes that were crushed on Friday and then now got juice coming out on Shabbos, is it permitted or forbidden to eat? This whole brisa has added nothing to us. We had exactly the same machlekes in our Mishnah, except in our Mishnah it was just Rav Shimon, and here you've got Rabbi Loza and Rabbi Shimon. Sorry, I made a mistake. In our Mishnah it's only Rabbi Loza, and here it's Rabbi Loza and Rabbi Shimon. So all you've done in this brisa is added one more person to the opinion which we had in the Mishnah. So what have you gained? Abai was a Talmud of this. He said, no, we learned a lot. In our Mishnah, a honeycomb, one could argue that a honey itself is considered a food. Since it's considered a food, therefore Chazal were not so machmir, because a food from a food were not machmir, as we said. You might have thought that over here by grapes, we should be more machmir, that if a person crushes grapes on Friday, and on Shabbos losing out, it should be forbidden, because this is proper dosh. Mashmalon, that's permitted as well. In our Mishnah, they only argue about honeycombs. Here they're arguing also by grapes, and we take a basket like that. If a person crushes grapes on Friday afternoon and on Shabbos they're oozing out, it's mutter. Not chayshash, that is forbidden. Now we're getting a little bit more preparations of food, cooking preparations. If on Friday you put it in hot water to make it edible, you're allowed to put it back in hot water on Shabbos to enjoy it better. The Gemara describes that greater depth. If you didn't put it in hot water, you're allowed to rinse it with hot water on Shabbos. This Mishnah is very, very sadistic. The way most of the Shidduchim learn is that Mishnah is telling you that any food that you want, you're allowed to do Ivoy Keli Rishon. What's Medichin? Medichin means you rinse it. What do you rinse? You take it, those days don't have taps. You have a pot full of boiling hot water, and you want to rinse something with hot water. Let's say, for example, you've got yourself a tomato. You want to get it, you don't like to eat raw tomatoes. So you want to take a pot of boiling hot water and pour it over the tomato. Mutter asa. Mishnah says, Mutter Madichin, even though, again, let's read the words again inside. It never got cooked on Erev Shabbos. And it's not talking about something which is mevushal, where it's a big, not such big chiddush. It's something which never got cooked before. Tomato never got cooked. Madich Shabbos, you can rinse it with hot water on Shabbos. You can't drop it into a pot, because that would be bishul. Because by dropping the tomato into the pot, you're doing bishul in the keli rishon. But you can rinse it with hot water on Shabbos. You can see, imagine such a thing. Any ivui keli rishon would be mutter. So, for example, you want to have your coffee, your honey, you want to put hot water, you want to break your baby's cereal, you can just take hot water and pour it over. Chutz minameliach hayosh, an old salted food, the kulisai spinning. Kulisai spinning is a kind of fish, which the article translates as Spanish mackerel. But it's a fish which gets easily cooked. Rinsing with the hot water makes it cooked. Now, this puts a huge spanner in the works, because it comes out that if you've got a salted fish which is easily cooked, like for example, take herring, it's a small fish, or mackerel, whatever it is, since it's been salted already, it's almost edible. It's not properly edible. Now you just pour with hot water from Ivui Keli Rishon and you can eat it. So it comes out that by just doing Ivui Keli Rishon, it becomes edible. And because of that, we've got people saying that if you pour hot water onto your coffee, you're also no good. Because who told you that your coffee is not the same as Spanish mackerel? Pashtus not. Pashtus, you can say, look. Okay, I'm not talking about coffee. I'm talking about coffee. The Falk said recently that some of the coffees nowadays are not being cooked. I tried to get Askam. I'm bringing out a sefer church. I tried to get Askam. The last conversation I had with him was regarding this, the Shiur, and also about this. That he said, I don't drink coffee. Well, my sons does. So he said to me, no, you can't just take any coffee. You have to verify some of the coffees have not been Oh, so that's really a new Shiloh. That's the Shiloh. It's just interesting that I find it very hard to digest. The Mishnah says you can pour hot water on anything, except that the Mishnah found two things for us. Meliach hayoshan, an old salted piece of something, and Spanish mako. And nowadays, we're not allowed to pour hot water on anything. Why? Because the Kalei Bishul. How do you know? Bishul doesn't say coffee. Oh, okay. But it comes out everything. Okay. No, I'm not arguing. I'm just telling you it's interesting how you see it from the Mishnah. The Mishnah says one thing and we've come. Yes, if you pour coffee, that's it, it's having cooked. Let's go back. The Mishnah said you're allowed to put something which was in hot water on Friday, you're allowed to put it back in hot water on Shabbos. If something already had, if something was soaked in hot water on Friday, you could soak it again. So, Abba, for health purposes, would soak a chicken for a very, 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 very long time. And the chicken would be soaked and soaked and soaked until it almost dissolved. And then every Friday you put in hot water. And on Shabbos, so that more hot water, that's permitted. Nothing more says a little tiny bit about this chicken. One time I went to visit him. I ate from it. If you didn't give me wine, which was 3 years old, it's nisi, I'd have been throwing it all up. It's tasted so unpleasant. So therefore, but this is the halacha that you're allowed to soak it again. Rabbi Yochanan Vaik, nothing more says a little about food. Rabbi Yochanan Vaik, kutach te bavloi. Kutach te bavloi, which is a whole sugya in Pesachim. What's kutach te bavloi made out of? Old moldy bread, milk, and cheese and salt. And people used to love it as a dip. Rabbi Yochanan lived in Eretz Yisrael. He used to say, "Oh, the Babylonians drink it." He used to spit. What? Like Marmite. Very good. Omar Yosef, you're steching us because he lived in Eretz Yisrael. We'll stech you back. You live in Eretz Yisrael. We would spit when we would think about the chicken that Abba used to eat. One time I went to Eretz Yisrael. I made the kutach which is making bother. Everybody, all the not well people in Eretz Yisrael came rushing to eat from this kutach bavloi. The Gemara that means over here brings this again. The reason we mention this Gemara is only because we're talking about something which was put in hot water, you have to put in hot water again, which is Abba's chicken. Rabbi Yochanan never liked the Babylonian food. The Babylonians never liked the Tzisol food. But the Ma'is, the Gemara says that at different times they did like it. You see that all the people not well would come to eat the kutach habab. What happens if you rinse something with hot water, which is Gemar Bishulom? Omar Yosef Hidiach Chayav Chatos. It's an Issa Deraisa to pour hot water. So here you see that even Keli Rishon can be an Issa Deraisa, proper Bishul. It's actually Medurik in our Mishnah. The Mishnah itself says the rinsing is Gmar Malocha. What's Gmar Malocha mean? It's the end of the cooking. Shema Mino, it's a good raya. So we see over here that the Adocha is Gmar Malachton. That's a good raya. That what? That rinsing something is considered a proper Malocha. So you have to be very careful. We're talking about the coffee. If indeed it hasn't been cooked, and if indeed coffee is Kalei Bishul, you've done a mamish at Issa Deraisa by pouring hot water on it. Even though it doesn't look like it because it's just pouring hot water, you're not putting it into a pot and cook it on the fire. You see from this Gemara that even Keli Rishon can be an Issa Deraisa. In other words, got a whole lot of Agadata. Yosef Abchir Ba'abba Ba'asi Kavid Abich. Abchir Ba'abba Ba'asi was his father Abich. Yosef Abich, come on, name Abich was dozing off. Only Abchir Ba'abba Ba'asi. He asked him the following questions. Why are the birds in Babel particularly fatty? In those days, fatty was good quality. So why are they so fat that so the birds aren't? Go to Midbar Azza, which is in Eretz Yisrael, and I'll show you something which is even fattier than them. Meaning that what? It's a good question. So he said that in Azza, the Gemara later gives other reasons for it. In Azza, they're even fattier. If they, why in the chutzlars are people rejoicing on Yom Tov more than they rejoice in Eretz Yisrael? Why do they rejoice? One says, because they're very poor. Just a very side point that just very recently saw the Steinberg wrote a letter like this. I just explain the Gemara again. The Gemara says in the Babel, people used to rejoice on Yom Tov more than Eretz Yisrael, which is a very big thing. Why? Bovel, they were poor. So Rashi explains that Bovel, since they were poor, therefore what happened was, when they would come to Yom Tov and they would have treats, they were very excited. And now it's so they were rich. Since they would have treats all the time, so having chicken or meat on Yom Tov didn't mean that much to them. So now it's so they never rejoiced in Yom Tov so much. The Steinberg wrote a letter to somebody that one of the reasons, it's a very hard diagram, but I'm not saying you can follow it, I'm just saying what he wrote. He says, I don't know if it's main reason, one of the reasons why a person should not indulge during the week, not himself and not his children, is because if otherwise, how will Shabbos be special? And Mamish read it literally less than a week ago. And it struck a very strong chord by me in the sense that I struggle. I want to mention before Shavuos, I told my children, let's buy something special for Shavuos. I spent a lot of time looking for something special for Shavuos. It was very hard to find. I don't know, there's not a toffee in the shop which they haven't eaten, not a chocolate which they haven't eaten, not a cake which they haven't eaten. So how are you going to make Shabbos special? You see over here that you can want to make it special in a way for poor people, it's easier. And then the Gemara carries on. If they matter with the Chomish Bobim with Tzionin, why to be the Chomish that's so dressed in fancier clothes? If you in on Bnei Torah, because they're not Tamid Chachamim. And now it's a source since they're Tamid Chachamim, they don't need to dress in fancy clothes. Why? Because everybody respects them for their Torah. Being bothered, not such Tamid Chachamim. If they won't wear fancy clothes, they would know they're Tamid Chacham. So therefore, it's a very cynical. I should say that. If they marry the Chachamim, so I mean, why Tamid? What? Maybe what people do, yeah, they cover that term, maybe. If they marry the... if they marry, I haven't got so much time about this. There's a lot to say. If they marry the Chachamim, why are Goyim dirty? Meaning, I saw the article wrote, it means in a spiritual sense. It's not the real pshat. I dare say there's certain things they had to be careful about. But real Mizuamin means there's a certain impurity to them. They eat certain creatures, grubs and snakes, and all these things. Isabu Abichnon. Abichnon woke up, he asked him 4 questions, and the video Yoda actually explains that the all halacha l'maisa. He goes to great length how this is all halacha l'maisa. How would this come to an afkamin l'maisa that birds are fat and all that? But okay, he brings to it. Omalu Dardki, little children, he didn't like the answers. They did not tell you. Tell wisdom, you're my sister. What does that mean? If you know the halacha is clearly, like your sister that's forbidden to you, everybody knows you're not allowed to marry your sister. That's a very clear halacha. Then say the halacha. If you don't know the halacha, don't say an halacha where you're not really sure about it. Only say halacha if you know it. Like if you know that your sister's forbidden. So they said to him, so you tell us some of these reasons. I mean, so you're saying our reasons are not good. Tell us if they marry fish, why the birds in Babel are fatter? They never went into Golus. That means when the Churban Bayis Rishon we're talking about, not Bayis Churban Bayis Rishon happened, the whole of Eretz Yisrael became totally destroyed. That means totally desolate. Shanema Shanan Moav was settled and calm from its youth. The Shoketu al Shemov, it sits on its sediments. I mean, it's not stirred. He never went into Golus. Where did they saw they went to Golus? The Tana of Yehuda Nun Beishon 52 years. Not a single person moved in the whole of Eretz Yisrael 52 years. There wasn't a person alive living in Eretz Yisrael. Can you imagine? It's the Haftarah of Tisha B'Av. Behema was 52. The teachers are for 52 years. Rashi explains a bit of the Cheshbonos. That 18 years they came back to start building second Bayis Hamikdash. It's a difficult cheshbon. You have to look at the end of year because at the end of the day, by the Churban Bayis Rishon, they didn't all go into Golus. How do we know that? Because Gedalia became king. It was only a few months later, eventually Shmuel came and killed him. But there was a period of time for 52 years where the whole of Eretz Yisrael was literally desert. Everybody came back to Eretz Yisrael, except for this Spanish mackerel, this particular fish. Why? I'm not sure how to explain it scientifically. The Gemara says in a few places on the Dom says exactly the same thing, and it's very hard to explain scientifically. We all know Eretz Yisrael is very high, Babel is very low. So how does water get to Eretz Yisrael? The Gemara says there are streams that go up ladders underground from Babel, from the Nile, all the way up to Eretz Yisrael, and they come out in Eretz Yisrael. So there are streams coming from Babel all the way up ladders, meaning I suppose upward tunnels, and they come out in Eretz Yisrael in Yerushalayim, and Ein Etam comes there. Any middle above these slopes above Mahadri Maya bring back water late Etam to the spring of Ein Etam. But this fish, it's got a very weak spine. They motzi solid. It can't go uphill. For a fish to go uphill, it has to be able to have a strong spine. It's a good expression. To be able to go against the tide, you have to have a certain strength. But this fish can't do it. Since it can't do it, so therefore it never came back to Eretz Yisrael because it can't go uphill. But all the other fish did. Why in Bavel are people happy in Yom Tov more than Eretz Yisrael? They weren't in the Klala. Hashem said regarding Eretz Yisrael, I'll stop all the Yomim Tovim, the Rosh Chodesh on the Shabbos. Baruch said about Klal Yisrael that your Yomim Tovim are a pain for me. So again, this looks after. This after before was after Tisha B'Av. This after is Shabbos Chazoin. That Baruch says there were a burden for me. My Yoda the Torah. Omar Blozma Kadosh Baruch Hu L'dan Yisrael Shechrit was on after do Aver Sefanai Eshmatzvichin Oisi Leida Ezek Kosha V'Alem. When Kaisel do Averos, we burden Hakadosh Baruch Hu that He has to put on us punishments, and that is a huge burden on us. And Hakadosh Baruch Hu says, "Ayo Laila Torah Yom Tov," because it's a time of Averos. So Hakadosh Baruch Hu has the effort to do something to punish us. There wasn't a single Yom Tov that they didn't come an army against Sipori as a punishment for Kaisel. Agman and Captain Baal Zemoy were just names of different kinds of officers that would cause trouble. It's interesting. Baal Zemoy, what's the word Zemoy normally mean? They got a branch. Garland is a good word. There were many officers that, in order to show the importance, they would take a branch of a vine, wrap it around the heads of the belt, and now considered to be very superior. So that's why it was called a Baal Zemoy. Okay, these are kinds of officers. So every Yom Tov, people would come to cause trouble. When they're not in the normal place, you have to tell people that your greatness. So therefore, they had to dress in a specific way. In town, Shamoy, a person's name goes in front of him. Out of town, Toisvoi, it's a person's clothes. That means when a person's known, it's okay his name goes in front of him. He's got no name. The person has to show with his clothes. It's referred to the chomim that they come and they take root and they create flowers. Just like if you add flowers to a place, it makes beauty. The Talmidei Chacham they add flowers and blossoms to Torah, meaning they enhance Torah. Not like what we said before, they're not such big Talmidei Chachamim. Why are they impure? Why are they dirty? They never stood at Har Sinai. The Pasuk says by Chava, in her defense, she used the word Hanochash Heshiani V'oichel, which the simple translation is, the Nochash convinced me and I ate. That's the simple translation. The Chazal darshan from the word Heshiani, that it's a lotion of nisuin, of marriage, that they actually mated. So when that happened, Hitu Bozuam, he put within her impurity. He saw Shamdal Har Sinai, Paska Zuamoson. We know that in Kaisa, when they came to Har Sinai, all illnesses were cured, blindness, deafness, everything, including was this illness, this impurity. Gave him my what about game? The Malach was there. It's not just people here, but also the people that are not here. For 3 generations, the Zuam or the purity stayed. So from there, it's clear that when did the Zuam stop? After Yaakov, not like we just said at Har Sinai. So we have a machrekas, when did the impurity stop?
3 generations.
Yeah, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That means Avraham purified a bit, Yitzchak purified a bit, and Yaakov completely purified. So we have a machrekas, when did the purification of Klal Yisrael happen? Did it happen at Har Sinai, or did it happen at Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Hashem's got a whole shtickle about it. That Akshvocha originally did indeed want that the whole world should be on the Daga of Klal Yisrael. When he saw for the hate of Adam Rishon that Klal Yisrael not capable, the world is not capable of it, he decided that only Klal Yisrael can do it, and this is what the Gemara means. Only through Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov can you get to this purification. I was hoping to get further. I would like to get a tiny bit further. What do you think? Do we have to do, or should we stop here? What do you think? It's a Mishnah. Okay, we'll start. Right. So we'll stop here. Tomorrow we'll get to the Mishnah on Kuf Mem Zayin on Mud Aleph. And what time is Mincha? You know what time Mincha is on Shabbos? You worked out at 9:05? So 9:05.
What time tomorrow morning?
What time tomorrow morning? Anybody wants to speak? 10:30. Is that okay with you, Andrew?
Yeah.
Good? Right. 10:30. 10:30 tomorrow morning. I'm giving a share in my house. I'll put it on Zoom. No, I prefer not because I've got the mitzvah. Right.
Same login?
Same login, yeah. Same login. Same login. 10:30 tomorrow. And 8:20 on Shabbos, we'll be carrying on the Mishnah Kuf Mem Zayin, and we're finishing the Perek on Shabbos. We should finish the Perek. Do people want 10 to 9? If everybody wants 10 to 9 live, besides for you.
I won't be able to do it tomorrow.
No. Okay,
Tomorrow we're going to Kuf Mem Zayin on the base.
no, Kuf Mem Zayin with Aleph, the Mishnah, the bottom of the page. And on Shabbos, we're finishing the Perek. 8:55. Oh, change. Minchas 10 past, shares 10 past 8. 10 past 8 on Shabbos. Shares 10 past 8. We put it on the group here, though. Yeah? Okay. So tomorrow 10:30, Shabbos 10 past 8. And it's actually